Welcome to the video edition of The Fourth Curtain, featuring this week's interview. Catch the extended audio version with Alex and Aaron's commentary wherever you get your podcasts. On with the show.
Welcome to The Fourth Curtain, friends. Today we are joined by one of the most legendary and prolific voice actors in the history of gaming, Nolan North. If you've picked up a controller any time in the last 20 years, you've almost certainly heard his voice. Nolan has brought to life iconic characters like Nathan Drake from Uncharted and Desmond Miles from Assassin's Creed, but that's just the start. He's been everywhere. Deadpool, Destiny, Batman, Arkham, Call of Duty, Prince of Persia, Last of Us, Dota 2. It's only a sampling. If I were going to read them all, we'd be here for the whole hour. Nolan, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Yeah,
welcome to the show. How are you? Where are you? Did you say you're in Atlanta?
Yeah. I moved. I left LA about 4 years ago. I did a on-camera show for Peacock called Hysteria. Came out last year, I guess, October maybe. And we just never left. You know, both kids had gone to college, and actually, my youngest came back here. He's training to be a stuntman, and he's actually done Fallout. He's done voiceover. He's done Fallout. Did the TMNT video game as Paul Rudd's voice match. My other son's been doing TV and stuff, and he just, as you're probably aware, the landscape in LA just isn't as good as it used to be, and it's so expensive. And I now have both boys. My wife and I have both boys living 15 minutes from us.
Oh, that's
cool. In this day and age, you can record from anywhere. I just ran into Kari Wahlgren, who's a great voice actress, and she's moved back to where she grew up in Kansas City. And and you can do it from anywhere since the pandemic. This is my little booth that I have at the house, and record a lot of stuff here. And I had a client recently like, hey, does he have this is a TLM 103 microphone? And they said, really would like a U87. Does he have one? I'm like, no. They said, could he go get one? I said, just add about $6,000 to my fee and I'd be happy to go get one. And next thing I know, they're like, okay, what's your studio of choice in Atlanta? So there's a great studio 20 minutes from here called Smart Post. I do a lot of work there. They did all the Avengers movies and Spider-Man movies, Walking Dead. And so, it's just become great quality of life. As you get older, you realize, and it's also nice to keep more of the money that you make. It's much easier to do that here.
Oh, that's always nice. I imagine, are you talking about taxes like in Georgia is more favorable than California?
And food costs and things like that.
Oh, yeah. And the industries, they call Atlanta now, they call it Yollywood. It's Yollywood.
That's right.
I mean,
there is a lot of production that goes on. Yeah.
Tons of production is down here. So it's nice. It's a good atmosphere. And I do travel quite a bit for Comic-Cons and different things like that or work. And the airport, you can pretty much get a direct flight just about anywhere. And I grew up on the East Coast, so, it's just the only downside is I really used to like watching NFL football at 10 a.m. And, the Monday Night Football is 5:30 p.m. And now it's 8:30. And if it's not one of my teams, I'm just like, I got to go to bed. Yeah. So that's the only downside.
Well, I mean, you grew up on the East Coast, so you're used to that from being a kid, right? Because same with me. I grew up in New York, and there's a few things that are timing, like NFL is a big one.
Yeah,
it's a different vibe watching Monday Night Football at 5 in the evening instead of 8. It's a way different vibe.
Yeah, but it was really cool. Those 1 o'clock games are 10 o'clock games. So you're having your coffee and then by the then you're cooking out at home, and we kind of the whole family really just likes NFL football.
Are you a Falcons fan now? What's your team?
Oh no, so this is takes a little explanation. And I'm sure everybody's tuned into this podcast to hear about my football fan.
So for sure.
This is an exclusive.
So I'll do this very quickly. I grew up in New England. I was born in Connecticut, raised in Southern Mass and then Rhode Island. Growing up, the Patriots weren't very good. No, you don't know where it's going.
I don't know where this is going.
My older brother, 7 years older, was born in New York, and all my hand-me-downs were New York Giants gear.
Oh.
So I am still to this day a New York Giants fan in the NFC. Now my birthday.
All right, right on. I grew up Phil Simms era.
Yeah. Ooh, I can talk about Lawrence Taylor, all those guys all day. And then, but my birthday's Halloween, end of October, and Christmas, a couple months later. My dad is from Iowa, Southern Iowa, so his whole family would send me Kansas City Chiefs gear. So I follow the Chiefs in the AFC, Giants in the NFC, and the perfect thing is when one is terrible, the other one's really good.
Yeah, that's good.
And so they're never going to meet. So I never have to make that choice. So so it's like, okay, we're out of the playoffs. Let's go Chiefs. The Chiefs are out. Let's go Giants. But those two shall never meet.
That's cool.
Never. So yeah, that's my teams.
All right.
Those are pretty good.
And I'm not a bandwagon guy. Never jumped on the Patriots bandwagon. I liked, Belichick and Brady. I'm not a hater. I'm not I don't want to be that the guy who jumps on bandwagons when they got really good. I was still, and when, Giants ruined their perfect season in the Super Bowl, I was.
Yeah, I thought that's where you were going to go. Because a lot of people usually apologize for liking the Patriots first. You said
no, they were pretty bad when I was growing up. I remember going to games with my dad, and I mean they had the aluminum bleacher seats and with a number on it that you sat on, and you'd go get like a kid get a little hot cocoa because it's freezing, and by the time you got to your seat, it was cold. It was chocolate milk.
Yeah,
so
it was frozen.
Yeah, so it's like So there it is. That's the football portion of the show.
Well, there you go. I think that's a wrap. Thanks for coming. No,
thank you.
No, we have religious discourse and politics to talk about next.
Exactly.
All right. Well, so take us back to being a kid. Like, did you grow up at a house where there was either influence around entertainment or technology? Like, what kind of got you into acting and voices and that kind of thing?
Well, everybody's path is different, and mine is crazy. I always could mimic people. My dad raised me on a lot of British television, so I was always like, doing Monty Python, yes, John Cleese, and I could always do these things. I could do my Uncle Bob from Boston, he talked like that, and all these voices have found their way into a game or a cartoon somewhere. I mean, they all have. And, class clown, I had, when I was 15, I looked like I was like 10. I think I have this 5-year window. My agents, my on-camera agents are like, you can play a little older, but you can play about 5 years younger. And I'm like, yeah, you should meet my mom. She's 81 and she looks like she's 61. So it was just, but I grew up in sports. I played baseball. I went to North Carolina on a baseball scholarship to play there. And they had a journalism program. I wanted to be, I figured if it doesn't work out, I'll go to ESPN. That'd be cool. Then I did grad school in Boston after I blew up my shoulder. And I had no practical experience because I couldn't do any internships or anything because we were playing and we were traveling. And everybody kind of had a leg up. So I went to Emerson in Boston, got my grad degree, and immediately I got a job, WTZA in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I was just a field reporter. And after a month in Poughkeepsie, they sent me to their new bureau in Stamford, Connecticut. So I was doing stuff there. Then I was living in the city, in New York City, with a girlfriend at the time. And then they sent me to Piscataway, New Jersey, and I would have to drive in my little Honda. I had a cameraman who was a drug addict, so sometimes he didn't show up.
Oh, no.
And like I interviewed Al Gore with a camera and a microphone one time, and he's like, "Is this for a school?"
You were holding the
like,
camera
no.
and the microphone.
Yeah, he's like, "Is this for a school?" I was the idiot out there with the camera on sticks, I'd put like a marker down to where I'm going, and then go do it, press record, stand there, go back, make sure I was centered. And I was the idiot out like on the Jersey Shore somewhere when a hurricane or nor'easter's coming through. I'm like, as you can see from the waves, I shouldn't be here. But living in New York, the thing is, I covered so much murder and deaths and just horrible things, and it just was miserable. And I was living in New York, and a buddy of mine who had gone to Duke when I was at Carolina, and when I hurt my shoulder, I needed an extra arts credit, so I took an acting class. Thought it'd be fun, and for whatever reason, I was good at just ad-libbing and making and memorizing things. And I did. The play was a lot of fun. It was great. And I years later, we catch up in New York, and he's at Columbia Grad School as a playwright. And he said, "Hey, I got this play. You should do it." So I did it, and I loved it. And I remember just thinking at one point, my relationship had gone down the tubes, and I was just sitting there broke, and I'm making no money at a job that I can't stand. And what am I doing? And I'd rather be broke and happy than have a paycheck and, be miserable. So I decided to just throw it all in. My mom almost had a conniption fit. She was like, "You're giving up your career." But I just started doing every play he wrote, and then his friends there, hey, would you do this one? And so I was doing all those. I started doing stand-up comedy, which I had won a contest at North Carolina, goofing around with my friends, and opened for George Carlin at the, it was just from a contest. And
wow.
So I'm doing that. I temp jobs, bartending jobs. I was making more money doing all these little jobs than I was as a reporter, and I was happy. And I was close on a couple like actual, off-Broadway plays, and it didn't happen. And everyone's like, "Well, you didn't train and didn't go to Juilliard or Yale or anything." And my friend and I one night, we'd make a really nice dinner once a month just to treat ourselves. And we got a bottle of whiskey or something. We drank most of the bottle. And that night he said, "You should just go to California and see if you can make it. They don't really care about if you went to a drama school or anything." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." September 1st, 96, one bag of clothes. I flew to LA, one-way ticket, got a cab from the airport to Rent-A-Wreck, got a Ford Festiva with a racing stripe and gray fur seats. That's all I could afford. Slept in it.
Really good memory.
Pretty much. Well, trust me, I remember the smell.
Remember that from? Yeah.
I remember the smell. I slept in it for about 3 weeks till a buddy of mine was moving out. We got an apartment, and it was about 6-7 months later. I got a 5-year contract on a soap opera, and that kind of started it. And fast forward after 5 years, it goes off the air. I had just had my second son was born, and they canceled the show. And I had offers to go do 2 in New York, but I just felt like I wanted to do comedy. I wanted to do other things, and it's not a knock on daytime shows. It just was, it's like been there, done that kind of thing. And I start doing all the CSI Miami, which every actor did. These little episodics, and nothing was breaking. A couple screen tests for pilots didn't work out. And a buddy of mine that I'd worked with said, "Man, you on that show, man, you used to goof around with voiceover. You should talk to my agent about voiceover." And I did. And I remember she listened. I put together a demo tape, and I sat down with her, and she listened to the tape in front of me. And then halfway through, she sit there. She goes, "What the F are you doing on a soap opera?" And signed me. And here I am. I mean, and the thing is, with gaming in particular, nobody wanted to do games. No residuals. And it's what I'm like, I think the scale was about $750. And they were like, 3 voices. Oh, it's all yelling. And I'm like, I'm going to yell at my kids for free. I'll go pick up $750. And, I knew how to sing and yell from the diaphragm. So people were like, "Are you okay? Do you want a break?" I'm like, "No, fine, let's go." No. So it's just this weird ability to yell. I was just talking to Fred Tatasciore, another great actor, and he and I came up together, and he said, "Yeah, you and I never really bothered my throat too much." And I'm like, "No, of course, Fred's lungs are the size of my chest, each one." I mean, he's amazing. So, and at that time, I always looked at the voices in the games, and this is early days before things got more narrative driven. And it was, I always felt like I was part of sound design. They were trying to get the kids out of listening to rock music and just playing and have an experience. So I was like, if I could just kind of fly under the radar and sound like a guy going, "Get to the hedgerow, go," that kind of thing. It was just part of the sound design. And, I just got a reputation as being reliable. I would always try to get there early and finish early so people could get to lunch or home sooner. And I always felt like, and my own personality is I like to have fun when we're working. They'll be like, "Okay, we got that one. Can I give you another one? This could be crazy, but try it." And they're like, "All right." And inevitably, most of those would end up something that they would do. I just really enjoyed it. And then as it got more narrative driven and things, people knew my name and they're like, "Oh, he's doing this TV show and he's an actual actor." Because before, and then mocap, it was all stunt guys and performers
or animators,
animators, exactly. And so
have you done any motion performance too?
Oh, all of Uncharted was motion capture, performance capture became. Mocap became perf cap or whatever.
What was first, by the way? What was your first one? That first one you took the 750 for?
First one I ever did, it was 750 for a 4-hour session. Sony had a game, and it was a great game. It was way before its time, and it was called NBA The Life. And this Brandon Akiaton, I don't know if you know him. He had written this thing, and he'd gone to film school, and he had this idea, and it was about, I played the Jerry Maguire sports agent. And the concept was, you're a college basketball player, and I love this because I went to Carolina. The kid was played as a Carolina Tar Heel. And I guess as the player, you have to score a certain thing, and then you're going to get a sponsorship deal or this. And the big idea they had that they couldn't figure out how to do that could do now is, once you get certain accolades, you, the player, could like go on the website and design your own shoe, and they'd make it from sponsorship with Nike or Converse or Adidas. I don't remember. That never happened. But I remember going into this first mocap thing. I drove to San Diego. That's where we shot it. And it was, instead of 750, it was 1,500 because they needed 8-hour days. So I'm like, this is great. And 1,500 is like scale now for something, for a cartoon or anything. And little less than that. But anyway, I remember walking in, and on the stage, they had these huge poles with cue cards. And I had already memorized the script. I'm like, what are cue cards? And they're like, "Well, we can't track your eyes." So I could be talking to someone like this, and and it was really weird as somebody who's done theater and on camera, when someone's talking to me, but they're looking over reading something. And I was like, they're like, "You're not going to use the cards?" I'm like, "No, I say, kid, you're going to the big time." I can remember that. But it was funny because there was a basketball on stage, and if any of those rigs got hit, it would be an hour for them to recalibrate everything.
Oh God!
But we had a blast on
those.
On that. And then because I had done that, people were asking me to come in and do work on facial things where they put the markers on, and and you just go like that, and like 3 of them would fall off, and they'd have to re-glue them to your face. But I just thought it was always interesting to be part of that. It just was so interesting to watch that the industry kind of start moving into that narrative structure. And there were other games that did that, but got to more to performance capture and I don't have to tell you. I mean, Halo always had these great things. I've done the Halos, and they always had a cool story, and they had really good characters. And I remember Keith David doing things. I walked into sessions as Keith David, and because people are like, "Why do you want to do games and voiceover. I'm like, if Keith David can do it, I'm in.
That's awesome.
I really through Uncharted, I gained such a admiration for the programmers, the artists, the designers, and I remember I'd be at conventions or in interviews. They're like, "So how do they make the game?" And I had no idea. And I said, I was like, it's kind of like Willy Wonka's factory. You don't know how they make the chocolate, but everybody's going to buy it and eat it. And for Uncharted 3, I actually I wrote a book that was supposed to go in the collector's edition, but that's another story that I probably should relay. Because I made the last call going, the book's ready. When do you need the drop dead? So we'll ship them to you. And they're like, oh, we decided not to go that direction now. And I'm like,
oh no.
It's done. It's done.
Wait, what happened to the book? Is it out or is it just on your hard drive?
It was out for a while, and tried to sell them. Signed a bunch of them, and then they went out, and now they're charging way too much on eBay for one.
Okay.
We ended up, and then Sony called and they said, "Hey, if you want to continue selling it, we need a exorbitant fee for the licensing." And I'm like. So we ended up having to just, I think, burn like 10,000 of them. But there's still some out there. But what it was like a yearbook, and it was just all the actors, of course, but then Amy Hennig and Greg Baldwin, who was the facial designer. I remember my favorite was Doug Holder, particle artist. I walked by, I'd walk through Naughty Dog, and I saw him, and I mean the bags under his eyes. And I said, "You don't look so hot, man." He goes, "Oh man. All I see at night when I finally get to sleep are squib hits and muzzle flashes," because that's what he had to do. And he explained to me that anytime every caliber bullet from different rifles has to be a different muzzle flash that he had to hand animate. And then the hits, the squib hits, whatever that hits, if it hits another person, a glass,
dirt,
any
concrete,
type of
all those materials,
type of thing that it could possibly hit had to have a different look from any possible distance that the player shoots from. And I just sat there going, I have the easiest job of everyone.
Actually, to that point, do you think, and not to diminish everybody that worked on the game, because we've worked on games, we know there's a million people that work on them, and everyone works hard.
Yeah, sure.
And everything. I feel like that first game that you did of the Uncharted series, that it was the first time that I heard someone like the voice, and there was something. It was like it wasn't bad. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like the first time it was like it was like the most important part of the game is what it felt like. And like everybody knows that character now because of the voice, and the way it was played. And it was like, there was something about it that had never been done before, in my opinion. And and I think the whole world kind of like agrees with what I'm saying. And I know that, did you know that it was like special when you were done?
No, I tell people that there's a reason the first one's called Drake's Fortune and not Uncharted 1. We have no idea if there's going to be a second one. I think what made that interesting is they took the time and spent the money to, we would typically do the performance capture on Friday. Thursday was a full day rehearsal where we'd all meet, we'd read it through, have lunch. Read it through, make notes, make changes. Hey, why don't you say this? I'll say this. Amy Hennig wrote an amazing script. And the funny thing is, it wasn't a full script. It was, these are the 3 scenes. What happens next? Well, we'll see how it goes in this. And, she was always editing herself and she would allow us to infuse as much of our own self into it. And when you get with the other actors and you're on, and Gordon Hunt, Helen Hunt's father, a great animation director and theater director, he directed it. And, you would be in the scene and you're blocking it, you're walking, talking and doing it just like you would do a film or a television show. And there was this immediate kind of chemistry that everyone built, and there was no egos. It was fully collaborative, and we had so much fun. And you were just able to play. It's, good acting is just good conversation. It's, acting's reacting. But it's true. It's like you're saying things. There was one that like I just had to duck under this thing, and I thought it'd be funny if I hit my head. Ow! Didn't mean to do that. Little things like that.
Yeah, it felt very natural.
And what I hear from a lot of fans of the thing is like sometimes Nathan Drake, even in the gameplay, will say something that I'm thinking. And one of the greatest things they ever did, and I don't know if other studios have employed this now. We did something we called chasing picture. On the days that weren't mocap, where you have to do in-game, just little in-game cinematics where you're talking, we would have a script and we'd say the lines and, it might be a few different choices. And then we would just riff. And the other actors were sitting in the booth with me. And the famous Uncharted 2 Marco Polo, I was with Claudia Black and, Drake runs by a pool. And what the designers would do is they would run through the level and then we would just watch it and could riff and make anything up. And in that one, like the guy had jumped in the pool and Drake's swimming around and Chloe's walking around. I go, "Hey, Marco." And she's like, and Claudia just looked at me. She goes, "I'm not going to say it." I'm like, "Come on, Marco." She goes, "Polo." And everyone just started laughing and they're like, "Yeah, that's going in." And it became this iconic little fun thing.
Yeah.
Sully starts climbing up something and I'm sitting there, "Wow, Sully, you got a great ass." And it was just, and everybody just started, it started to sound so human and so real.
Yeah.
And I think we just, I like to say the cast was really, really good actors were put around me and Emily and Richard and everybody who came in was just so willing to collaborate and have fun and just it's just one of the best jobs and everybody's opinion mattered. Nobody felt like, "Hey, could we? What if we did this?" And Amy would be like, "Oh, let's try it." We had that time and that ability to do those things, and I think that might have made the biggest difference.
Yeah, I believe it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was great.
When you started that question, Aaron, your compliment at the beginning where you said it wasn't bad sounded like a little bit weak as far as compliments go. Well, you backed it up. You made it good.
Yeah. Well, no, I like the thing is, I always in any job I did, I just didn't want to be distracting. I remember I did Prince of Persia. And it was a beautiful game, and I saw the artwork ahead of time, and they were like, and I was like, "Well, what do you think? Should I do something like Middle Eastern, something that this, or maybe British, whatever?" And they're like, "No, we just want your voice." And I was like, "I don't think my voice." They said, "No, we just want this." And I'm going, they said, "Are you sure?" Like I had a line like, "It should be carpets this thick, Elika." Instead, it was carpets this thick, Elika, and they wanted my voice, and of course, Assassin's Creed wanted my voice, and then another game I did, Shadow Complex, just do your voice, and all of a sudden everybody was like, "This guy stinks. He sounds the same in everything." And yeah, it's true. And then I had done a bunch of stuff for Warner Brothers, and they gave me they booked me to do the Penguin. And I did the Penguin like this, and nobody knew it was me. And they're like, "Oh, okay, he can do other things." So I was like, "Yeah, I'm
Aaron,
please
that's your
just
favorite.
give me the
That's
shot."
your favorite character, right?
Yeah, that was the one. Like,
Oh,
what
is
you
it
said.
really, Aaron? That's very nice of you, mate. It's weird. When I do it, I have to actually squinch my eye. I don't know why.
It's like right on the edge of pirate, but it doesn't go there.
No, it doesn't go there because, it's not going, come on, you lot.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's good. Have you ever wanted to do Joker? Sorry, Alex.
You know what?
Keep going, Aaron.
The Joker is the one that
I actually got to do. I did do a version of Joker.
Oh, you did?
Once. What was it? It was his head in a jar and this big like ogre character.
And it was Joker. It was like,
but I was like, I don't want to do Mark Hamill, and he's the one in my head. So I was like,
doing something, and I kept them down here. Oh,
so it was just I said, I want an ode to Mark, but I didn't want to copy him.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, why didn't they get Mark? And I'd be the first to go, I don't know. Maybe he was too expensive. But I have to do it.
What was
it? It was
that
like,
in?
It was like a Toxic Joker or something. And it was just his head in like a fishbowl that this guy carried around. He goes, no, the other way, go.
Okay.
It was just, and I'd never make it a little lighter or something. Like, it just, yeah, but those are great characters to play. I mean,
Yeah.
I love doing things that are away from my own voice whenever I can, and get a lot of inspiration from like old movies. I did a Lego City cartoon, and I had to do this guy Fendrich, and I just talked like this. And at one point, they're like, "It's a great voice, we love it and everything." And they said, "What's the inspiration for that?" And I said, "Lionel Barrymore." And everyone's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "George Bailey. I worked with your father. Have a cigar. I'll offer you $200 a year." And so it was just, but nobody remembers Lionel Barrymore. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to steal that.
I remember Wonderful Life. Aaron's confused though.
I know I have seen that, but the voice is very familiar.
Yeah, he's the one in the chair who's like, savings and loans. I want the Bailey savings and loans.
Evil George Bailey. Yeah.
So a lot of inspiration from the old movies that nobody can remember.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Can we rewind just a little bit? Because
Sure.
you were talking about how you were living in, I think you were working in news, you're living in New York City, you're kind of hating on your job, and you make this decision to switch gears, basically change career and follow your, I'm going to say follow your passion.
Yeah, 100%.
How do you remember that period of time? Like, was that agonizing for you? Was that like a big debate, internal debate for you? Or was it like you kind of had to flip the table moment and you're like, I can't do this anymore, I'm out?
The thing is, I've always liked entertaining. I remember as a little kid at family gatherings, there was a show called Make Me Laugh on television. And it was like comedians had to get up and, contestants, if you made the contestant laugh, then they're out. And we used to get like up on the coffee table, and I'd have to do things. And I would do silly things and mimic a lot of the family. And they were like, that sounds just like you, And I remember my dad, the only way I was hard to make me break, but he'd just come up and whisper like a filthy word in my ear, and I'd be like, Dad said the F word. But he loved Richard Burton, Alec Guinness. I watched all the British television, Faulty Towers, all this different kind of stuff. So I always loved make believe and that kind of stuff. And when I did I remember doing the first play. I was a relief pitcher, and I wasn't very good. But so when I got to Carolina, you got these high hopes, and then there's guys there on their worst day are better than me on my best day. And you're just like, oh boy, I don't know if this is going to work out unless I start throwing a lot harder or whatever. I was a pitcher. But I remember some of my favorite moments were just like cutting up with my friends, sitting in the bullpen during games, praying I didn't get in. That's another sign that baseball. It's like, oh, I don't want to get in. It's it's 2-1 on TV against Clemson. I'm like, don't let me throw. Don't just. And I used to sit there going,
that's a good idea, Coach?
Yeah, if we can get to the 8th inning, we had a closer who threw like 99. And I'm like, well, good. Get to the 8th. They're like, whoo. Paul's in. Get Paul up. Yeah. But when I made the decision, I went to see my brother and I told him what, he's always been there for me. And he said,
we'll be right back. If you like what you're hearing, like and follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. And now, a word from our sponsors. Great games aren't just made, they're crafted. Pixel by pixel, idea by idea. Amber doesn't just develop games, Amber forges the future of play, one project at a time. From the magic makers at Disney to the tech giants at Amazon and Warner Media, the biggest names in the industry trust Amber to turn their wildest ideas into reality. Why? Because the talented teams at Amber believe in pushing every boundary, breaking every mold, and having a bit of fun while they're at it. Need a partner who knows the game and plays to win? Amber has the talent, the passion, and a global network that's ready to roll. So let's skip the loading screen and get straight to the action. Discover how Amber can power up your next project at amberstudio.com. Do you want your game to live forever? To supercharge it with immense powers of endless content, a buzzing gamer community, immortality, and coin? CurseForge for Studios, an exclusive service for visionary game developers, allows you to add safe, cross-platform mods to your game and enjoy all the benefits of user-generated content without any of the risks. With CurseForge for Studios, you can harness the creativity of our 165,000 devoted creators and the traffic of 43 million monthly gamers. You can also level up with premium mods and grant your game new revenue streams. Trusted by AAA studios, CurseForge for Studios is an immortality potion for your game. Enter studios.curseforge.com and join the UGC era. Leveling up your game dev career but not sure where to start?
Maybe you're trying to break into the industry, looking to connect with other people who are making games.
Consider joining the International Game Developers Association, the IGDA, the world's largest nonprofit member-driven professional association serving all individuals who create games.
I was in the IGDA in Chicago, met a lot of people. Great way to network.
The IGDA exists to support and empower game developers around the world in achieving fulfilling and sustainable careers.
Discounts,
Educational and advocacy-based resources,
mentorship.
and solidarity across 160 plus chapters.
To join the IGDA, visit igda.org/membership and use the code IGDA 4th Curtain 15. No spaces there.
To get 15% off 1- and 2-year memberships, as well as a student membership.
Joining the IGDA is a great move for your career, and as a nonprofit supporting everyone making games, it's a great move for the whole community. Join today. Hey listeners, it's Alex from the 4th Curtain.
And Darren here. We want to give a quick shout out to the team at High Vibe PR.
High Vibe PR is our boutique communications firm. They're all about companies and brands defining the future of gaming, entertainment, and culture.
Look, when you're doing something big, you need the right people to help you tell your story. And High Vibe PR, they're the best at making it happen.
Absolutely. They've helped us at Look North World level up our messaging, connect to the right audiences, and stay ahead of the curve in this ever-changing industry.
So, if you're looking for a PR partner who gets gaming and entertainment like no one else, check them out at highvibepr.com.
That's highvibepr.com. Go give them a look. You won't regret it.
And now, back to the show.
He said, I'd always tried to please everyone, my parents, girlfriends, whatever, and, do the right thing. I should have a job and be responsible. And finally, he said, if you could do anything, if nobody was around and you're alone, what would you do with your life? And I went to answer, and he goes, no. I want you to think about that for a day. Tomorrow night, we'll sit down, have a beer, we'll talk, and you tell me. And I remember I went, he was in Tampa at the time. He was a baseball coach at the University of Tampa at the time. And I was in shape back then. So I went for a run. And like Forrest Gump, I just didn't know where I was going. I just kept running, and I just knew it was out and back. I'm not stupid, but I remember just going, and I'd stop, and I'd by the water, and then I'm running some more, and got back. We got back, and I told him, I said, he said, what do you think? I said, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I want to be an actor. And he said, okay, that's harder than getting to play major, pro baseball, right? The people and. I said, yeah, I just don't care. I think I can do it. And he just looked, he said, you have made everyone in this family laugh. He said, I've had asthma attacks because he said, if anybody can do it, you can. And I never got nervous in front of people. I just was like, I could, just whatever. I was never afraid to fail, I guess. And like the success is in the doing, not like the result. And for me, it just seemed to be something that, and the crazy thing is, I was like, oh no, I'll work. I'll be an actor. I mean, I'll go out, get a job, pay my bills, but I can do this. I can do this. And I don't know why it was like this, the arrogance of ignorance maybe, but I just really figured I could do it. And,
Were you doing construction at some point?
After the soap opera went off, a buddy of mine who's actually now the utility voice for The Simpsons, who's actually moving to Georgia. I was doing some crown molding for a guy who had a store, and he wasn't paid. He paid me nothing. I did all the work, and I was like, and he was a jerk. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to undercut this guy. So I started. There are houses in Santa Clarita, California, with terrible, shoe molding and
Oh, no.
yeah, it's like and Chris Edgley would go. And the funny thing is, I was doing that. I was putting it up, and I painted. I worked for a painting contractor because he actually paid well, and I was like, I can paint. It's easy. And I remember we're putting this stuff up in this house. This woman's watching the show that I'm on, and she's sitting in a chair, and then she looks. She goes, "Oh my God, is that you?" And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am. Yeah, the show's still airing, but it's been canceled." She said, "Wow, I guess things are really tough." And she's like, "You're going to fill those nail holes, right?" I'm like, yes, we'll fill the nail holes. But it's just, but it's the thing. It's like, I never really, I never cared about being famous or anything. I remember getting that first job. I said, okay. And the funny thing is when you get a 5-year contract, sounds exciting. They have the rights for the first year to fire you every 13 weeks. So 13 weeks, they can just wash. And I was one of the only people who hadn't been killed or replaced in 5 years. And it's not because I was great. I've seen the shows. I wasn't. But again, I showed up on time. Everybody had a good time.
Which one is it? Which one is it?
It was called Port Charles. It was a spinoff of General Hospital.
Okay.
And it was, but it really set, and the thing is, they had a great on-set acting coach, John Homa, that was there. And he, I tell people, I said, I was very fortunate. I got paid to learn.
Yeah.
And
that's got to be a fun gig, though. How old were you when you were doing Port Charles? Were you in your 20s?
26.
26.
And what was
your day-to-day? Was it like, you'd roll in? How long a day was it?
It varied. 5 shows a day, 5 shows a week, 50 weeks of the year, 250 episodes a year. And it's funny because there's some days I was there all day. And then there was a couple days where I have one scene where I just have to kind of just do this. I just... and then go make my tea time and play golf. It was great. But the thing is, it's when you're given that many scripts, and I always made it a habit to never walk on the set with my script. I wanted to be absolutely locked in, and I think that's from my playing sports. You
Discipline.
prepare. You discipline, and you got to prepare.
Yeah.
And when you know it that well, you're free to infuse something different or to make it different, say something a little differently. But just you're freer when you're prepared.
Yeah. I mean, I asked about the sort of that moment in time and that choice that you made, because I think a lot of folks growing up, or like when they're kind of getting out of college, or they're trying to figure out like, what do I want to do when I grow up? A lot of folks I did have what seems like the biggest choice in the world to make, and all sorts of crazy inputs to think about. Like, and I think a lot of people think about what they should do or what other people expect them to do. And I just love your story about how that was kind of in your head, maybe, but really you had somebody, it was your brother, who basically challenged you to think about what was in your what was in your heart. It's like you don't know enough when you're that age. You kind of just got to trust what your gut is telling you, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's fun. I've met some people who believe that the instincts and your gut feeling is, that's, some people think it's that's God talking to you. That's if you're religious, or it's something.
This is the
spiritual.
Religious discourse part of the conversation.
Well, no, I mean, for me, it just was like you can take it as that, or just the universe that is saying, I just think my biggest thing was I've met so many people who have older people and they have regrets. And I just thought that's horrible. It's it's better to try and see what happens. Now that doesn't mean quit your job and be an actor or be an artist. It's
Alex,
like
the
thing is when I got
here I go. Thanks for the inspiration.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, I at the time I booked that job, I was working in 2 different restaurants at night and painting houses during the day. And days off, had fun. I was taking care of myself. There was no trust fund. There was nothing like that. And when you say, was it hard? That I was having the time of my life. And I thought, if something didn't happen, I never said I'm giving it 1 year. You can't do that. You can't say, okay, 1 year, 2 years, and then if nothing happens, I'm out. It's like putting limitations on that. There's no point. I think it puts too much pressure. Like I finally got an audition. I got to get this one, and you're gonna tighten up, and you're not gonna.
Yep.
It just was. People say, "Wow, how did you deal with the rejection?" I'm like, I was never rejected. I didn't. If you didn't get something, I learned actually through Uncharted. Starting in the second game, they had me cast the next game, second game and third and fourth game with them. Meaning, people would come in and read, and they'd read with me. And a lot of times it's friends of mine. And it was such an education for me. And I became a better actor because of Uncharted. And this is one of the big parts of that. Number one, I learned I was free to they gave me the freedom to infuse me. And Nathan Drake is, other than the ability to climb, it's very much me. It's my sense of humor. It's just like, this is what I would say in this situation. I do diffuse things with my sense of humor like Nathan Drake does. And I think a lot of people do that. And that's why he was such a great everyman character. But when I got to cast those things, you'd read 10 people for this role, and then they'd leave and we'd, make notes and everything and talk about it. Everybody who read for that was good, but that person's the right one. You don't know, you can't explain it. Chloe, we read a bunch of great actresses, and then Claudia Black came from the airport, Australian. She's talking like hairs everywhere. Okay, let's do this. And it was like, that's Chloe. I mean, and you felt bad for the other people who did great reads. And I tell actors, I said, just go in and do your version. And if it works out, it works out. I guarantee there were better technical actors than me who read for that. I think they read of 3,000 people at some point. There were better technical actors, but I was the right fit. And both my kids are doing this now. And I tell them, I said, that audition is yours. Make it different. Make it you. Nobody can mimic what you're doing, except me, of course. But nobody can be you. So give them you in the role. I finished a show for Peacock called Hysteria, and Julie Bowen from Modern Family played my wife. Bruce Campbell, Anna Camp, and again, 93% Rotten Tomatoes, and they didn't pick it up. Come on, Peacock. Anyway,
I know.
But seriously, it's just I think I learned so much from that, and I never looked at it as rejection. I never thought of it as failure and poor me. It's like, oh, somebody else was more right for that. And I don't begrudge other people's success. It's very difficult to do this. And, and the landscape's completely different now because you don't go to a casting director's office and meet them and, let's try it this way. And they give you direction. Then the callbacks and the producers and directors are there and they'll give you some notes. Now it's a self-tape. I'm sitting here in a camera doing my thing, and and I got one take to send them, and so it's completely different, and I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But to your specific question, no, I mean as long as I could pay my rent, had a little extra money, I'd made a bunch of friends, and I was in it. I was in the machine. I was auditioning and doing different things, whether I got it or not. But I just had this weird belief that, this is going to work out. It's going to be fine. And my mother, by the way, who had cried and gone crazy, in one phone call, it was like, I called her when I got the soap opera, and she said, "Oh my God, this is so exciting." I said, "Listen, I'll call you back. I have to call the restaurant and tell them, I'm done." And she said, "Well, wait. She goes, "Don't burn your bridges." And I'm like, "Burn my bridges?" No, they like. And matter of fact, that restaurant threw a big. The show premiered a 2-hour premiere on a Sunday night. Then it was half-hour shows Monday through Friday, and I found out later. I wish they gave me an invite, but they threw a big party and had it up. The funny thing is, it was a sports bar, and they said the big screen had that show. People are like, "Put the game on. I don't want to watch a soap opera." So that was great. But no, I mean, it's just, and in the business, it's relationships. It's people you meet, people you want to work with, and new people. So I've been blessed to have an amazing run.
Yeah, no, an incredible run. And it is really interesting to hear you talk about sort of that casting process and what makes chemistry and what makes a group of people produce, something that's bigger than the sum of its parts. Because I would say that's true in pretty much all aspects of probably everything, but at least from my perspective in game development, it's like talent definitely matters. But there's so much more, that matters, that makes a team, and I would imagine it was the same for you in sports,
Yeah, it is. And I think I've always taken that team mentality. It was a guy the other night hit 4 home runs and they lost. And they asked him after that, "You made history, like only the 13th player." He said, "Yeah, but we lost." And he's like, "Yeah, it's a great personal achievement, but we lost." And I think, specifically with gaming, I think it's something that, listen, it is really nice to be invited to podcasts and to Comic-Cons and to be the face of Nathan Drake or the voice of the Ghost in Destiny or whatever. But there are so many, that's what that book opened my eyes to. And game development to me is so collaborative, because you can have a great cast, the acting's great. If the game isn't good, it can look great, but if it's like it's too on rails or whatever, critics may say, nobody's going to care about the performance. But the thing is if the game is great and it looks great and the acting's, it's like a thorn in your side. You're just like, it all has to kind of marry together. Yeah. And so I think it's Uncharted did so much for me to learn, the geniuses who are making me look good, because it's all just dots and out of a mocap thing and making it sound right. Down to the the music that is in games, and but if the sound design is off and the explosions sound weird, it takes them out of that game. And when the game is fully immersive and the voice and the sound and the artistry and the programming all comes together, it's really cool. And I like being part of that. And I think I like to, you got to give credit where credit's due. I appreciate all the accolades and the love from people, but there's so much, and you do know better than anyone. There's so much that goes into that. Yeah. And Alex, I with my dealings with almost getting that book into the collector's edition, the business side of it is something that is just like, oh wow. I mean, because there's big budgets, there's massive amounts of money that have to be allocated and clipped here. I'm sure, and
Yep.
added there.
Yep.
And
Well, and things
so,
change all the times too. It's like that's
Yeah.
the thing I always come back to with this medium is
Yeah.
that it's 1 year to the next, it's different.
Yeah.
And every 5 years, it almost completely changes. There's a new game engine or a new platform or a new genre of game, and it's always, that's what to me makes it so exciting is there's always something new to think about, new opportunities, etc.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I remember there was a game that had no voices. So it's not, so you don't always have to have that. Was it Flower? Remember that years ago? I think it was Flower, and it was amazing, and it was just this beautiful experience. And and I remember people go, yeah, they did it without any voices. I mean, are you worried? I'm like, no. It's like there's horror movies and there's comedies and dramas in television and film, and no, there's always going to be other games. And I know a lot of people panicked when things are like, well, we don't want narrative games, but there's always some kind of narrative game. And sometimes places like Destiny, for example, my son would play the campaign, and he'd be like, he'd do this. Yeah, your game is great, Dad. It's great. I'm gonna play with my friends now. So he'd play the campaign, then the headphones go on, and he'd be locked in with his buddies. So, those games that Call of Duty did that well. They have the campaign, then it becomes something else that you do, online with your friends.
Socially, yeah.
Yeah.
It's how it's like my generation. It was a little early, but like this generation, like my kids, they're growing up with their friends playing games. I mean, that's how they
hang out there,
relate to each other.
What's really cool, I've noticed with Uncharted specifically, is I've done these Comic-Cons where you go and you meet people, and there are people coming up now with their kids who are 10, 11, 12, 13, dressed as Nathan Drake. So I introduced them to it, and it's like so cool that a whole nother generation. And it's a lot like the Indiana, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I remember couldn't wait for my kids to be old enough to see that, and to have been part of something that, people are now replaying and going back and doing those things. Everyone's like, "Where's Uncharted 5?" I'm like, when was the last time you played the first Uncharted? Go play that. You probably never got all the trophies. You didn't do it.
That's right.
The story holds up.
Yeah.
So here's go ahead, Aaron. I got a question after you do.
Okay, I was gonna ask, is there a character that you like? Is there anything right now that you really, really like doing? Like, if it came, like, or if you could pick, I want to do this one again.
Do this one again,
or
you've never done. Yeah.
Well, I do Prince of Persia with a voice and not my own voice.
Okay,
that would be number one. I don't.
Which one? Because you gave us 3. You showed us like a few variations of it. Was it the
third?
I don't know.
Voices,
no, I'll let the director, just not mine. He should. You shouldn't have. The Prince of Persia shouldn't sound like he's from Iowa.
Okay,
that's all.
Or Connecticut.
Or Connecticut, or anywhere in this country. Carpet's this thick, Elika. Man, I tell you what, I'm going to get these. I mean, he had scarves. He flowing black hair. He's real pretty.
That would be good.
No, I don't covet other roles. There's so many times, there were times where I'd get an audition for Wolverine. Oh, it'd be so cool to play Wolverine. And I'd be like, that's Steve Bloom. I've worked with Steve Bloom, and all I'm gonna do a bad Steve Bloom. I can't do that. There's certain characters I don't really. I enjoy other people's performances. I thought if I would a game I never did that I liked it, and just because is Red Dead Redemption, because I just love westerns. Sergio Leone and Eastwood, those westerns. I just love those things. But no, I like the next one. I like when somebody, who knows me or said, hey, you know what? He might like this. I'm attracted to I like darker characters. Did David in The Last of Us. So it was funny because that the story goes is like Amy Hennig is walking by and heard this David character talking like that. And she goes, "Oh, that's creepy. Who's that?" And they were like, "That's Nolan." She's like, "Oh my, no way." She didn't know. So, no, I just like interesting roles, things that challenge you. It could be comedic and silly. It could be dark. It could be have an accent from somewhere. I just had to do, I had to do a session yesterday for a animated show. I probably can't say what it is, but I had to do the whole thing in a made up language. And I took all the lines and I phonetically, they sent voice how it's said, and then slower. And then I did my own kind of, and they sent the phonetic script, and I'm like, now I got to make my own. And because, but if I can still, it was like this. And, again, preparation. And when I did the session, the producer of the show was like, I can't believe you did that. I'm like, my son loves this show. If I screw this up, but I was very proud, but at the same time, I'm like, doesn't everybody just prepare before? And they were like, no. I'm like, but if you have to speak a language that doesn't exist, and you're getting paid to do it, you better want to deliver that.
Yeah.
And
listeners, kids, I'm just going to point this out for you because I think this is super important. Nolan is super, super talented, but he shows up on time and he does the prep.
And he's prepared.
Yeah. Somebody said
so key to being successful.
One of my favorite things was it's better to be 15 minutes early than on time. And it's like, just, and if you get
there's no such thing as on time. Time is an analog measurement. You can't be exactly on time. You could only be early or late. So just choose: are you early or late? And if you're not early, you are late. So I'm with you on that.
The other thing that I think people in the business that want to get into the business, or some are, whether like an on-camera show or a game or anything, there are people working really hard. And I remember the show we did recently was, some of the younger cast would, come in a little bit late or something. And they were like, "You're already here?" And I'm like, there are people have been here for 4 hours before I get here. All I have to do is hit my mark and say the right thing so they can go back to their families. It's like, if you can just have the respect that this is a machine and that you're part of, drop your ego and just do your job. I think, so many people, you got to do your job. It's a job. And it's not like everybody wants this. That's why you meet people who just want to be famous. And I think it was Bill Murray. Somebody said, "Is it great being rich and famous?" He goes, "Rich is good. Famous." And you're just like, what a great line. It's like, wow, you can go out and, shoot a mayor and you'll be famous for a while. It's like, not that I'm advocating that.
The political
you could pick a different example maybe, but
maybe a different example.
Yeah.
The point is treat it like a job, because there's other people who are making this that are working
That's right.
harder than you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I
love that
speech about
perspective.
that.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. The speech you did, and we don't have to get into this, but the strike or something. And I remember. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. It's just, but it was Voices Matter or something like that. And I understand what they were talking about. And I just said, it's at the Game Awards or something. And I just said, I hear a lot about that, and they do matter, but everybody's voice matters. We need to all work together, get fair contracts and do those things. And that's fine. I'm not advocating against that. Yeah. I caught some heat for that. And people are like, well, I'm like, you threw your union under the bus. I'm like, no, I didn't. I just understand that nobody hears my performance if they don't do their job. Do your job. That's all.
I mean, that was a long time back, but
Yeah.
and again, I do think, and most of the people I've worked with, everybody's, there was a whole thing about vocal stress, and yet they had to warn you about vocal stress. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. It's a video game. You might have to yell. Yeah, if you don't want to yell, then you don't have to do it. It's like, oh, it's not working today. It's like, well, but okay, and I get that now. People are like, well, this is only going to be a 2-hour session. I'm like, okay, that's fine, and because there is the law of diminishing returns on with a voice actor if it's all very rough. I the only time I ever lost my voice like the next day, Call of Duty Big Red 1. It was an Xbox thing, and it was cool. I was Sergeant Randall, who you stormed Normandy Beach with, but I also played this Russian in the siege of like St. Petersburg, I think. And I did this voice. I chose to do this Russian like this, talking, and then it was like, Vasily, this way. And when you rasp, and those were 4 hours.
Oh gosh.
And I remember, and next thing I know, I'm like, and I got through the session, and then we had another one the next day, and I was like, I think we may have to reschedule to the next day. And they did. They were like, oh, that's no problem. But the next day, I was just, it's probably one of my wife's favorite days because I just didn't talk all day. Yeah.
Okay. Last question for me, because that's a good segue. In my experience, I've been in the booth, not in the booth, but in the session.
Yeah.
Voice actors in general seem to be pretty dirty and blue and get off book in the session. Is that do you do that, or is that not a thing for you? And why is that?
Why is that? What a great question. Let me tell you a story instead of answering it directly. I was doing a cartoon series, Wolverine and the X-Men. And the same producers of that did the movie Hulk vs. Wolverine. And it was the first time Deadpool was ever spoke in an animated film. And they came to me, the producers came to me, and they said, listen, so we're doing this film. Do you know Deadpool? I'm like, yeah, I love Deadpool. I had the comics as a kid. I know. They said, so you know about him? And I said, yeah. They said, well, we're just finishing up this movie, and we got an actor. I think he was a Canadian guy. I don't know who it was. They never told me. He said, but it's not quite right. And do you know how you say things in between our takes that would get us all canceled or fired? And I was like, yeah. They go, we think that might be Deadpool. So the next day, I go into a session, and they have a big monitor up and everything. They're going to show me the animation. And they said, all right, let's get started. And I said, I need a script. And they go, no, that's the fun part. We're going to show you the scene without him talking. Just make it up. Just do whatever you want. And I pretty much did the entire, every time Deadpool was just stuff that came out of the top of my head. It just, there was one time where he's walking by these, I didn't know they were like clones floating, and you just see Deadpool look and everything. And the next scene, he and Sabretooth are like loading weapons. And I'm like, hey, what do you say after this mission? We go back and shoot some of those floating babies. Goodbye, bang! And then some of the stuff they had to cut because it just got too dark.
Yeah, that was dark, dude.
But you know, like there's this one part where he leans over and he leans over to someone and say it's a very serious moment, and I just leaned and I just, when he leaned over, I just went, he's a bedwetter or something like that, and it was just stupid, and it made it in the movie, and it became like a big thing, and then we did the game, we made, and that was, I mean, pretty raunchy. Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's just, my head, it's just like pinballs going off around. I'm terrible in like serious situations. You take me to a funeral. Don't ever take me to a funeral. Because it's just like, and the jokes are hitting me, and I'm like, just don't say anything. Just be somber. And in my head, I'm going, don't laugh, don't say it, just don't say it. You're like, I mean, I remember my grandfather, but like I know what I'm like. My grandfather's funeral. I'm just sitting there, and and this went in my stand-up act where the guy came over who's the embalmer, and I sat there. My brother's sitting next to me, and he goes, "He looks great, doesn't he?" I said, "He's looked better, like when he wasn't dead." He goes, "Well, no, but we took care of him." I said, "Yeah, I see the makeup." I said, "I don't remember him wearing that much makeup, except on weekends, when he felt pretty." And my brother starts laughing. My mother's so angry, and it just kept pouring out. I just couldn't. And then we're laughing, and it's just. That's still not a highlight in my life, but it was just that's my head. I can't.
That's why.
It's always the joke.
Why, because you're an entertainer, and that's not an appropriate time to make those jokes. But when you're in a booth with a microphone and you got a captive audience, that's an appropriate time.
The other thing is so I've described how my brain works. That's the other part of why I think I've had some longevity is. I love to entertain the people I'm working for. If we all have a good time, it's going to be a good session. We're going to get good work done. We're going to get it done. I prepared. We're ready to go. But if we have fun, that's how you get rehired. Yeah. We were like, man, he finished early, and God, that was so funny. We had such a good time. I mean, they were like, I'd sit there, do takes, and it'd be like this serious moment. All of a sudden, I'd be like, guys, this is not what we're supposed to do. And, now there's whole takes of characters. It's Christopher Walken. It's like, oh, it's Al Pacino. Oh, and but you're just goofing around, and they're laughing and throwing ideas, and it's fun. And we're making games. We're making cartoons. It should be fun.
That's right.
I am professional enough in my on-camera work where I'm like that. The same way, but if there's an actor who's doing a serious scene or anything, I'm not an idiot. I know when to pull back now. I didn't when I was younger. That's the great thing about aging is you do gain the wisdom of like, but in my head it's just like, don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Go get coffee. Go get coffee. And you're just like because. So yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know why, they're pretty, there's God, one of my favorite sessions one time on some animated film, it was me, Tom Kenny, and John DiMaggio. Should have taken an hour. We were there for 3 hours because we just could not get through stuff. It was just.
He couldn't stop laughing.
It was John DiMaggio. Tom Kenny is lightning quick. John DiMaggio is one of the funniest human beings I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few times where I sit back and do shut up just because I want to be entertained, because he just goes off.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, Nolan, we've kept you a little long. Really appreciate you hanging out with us.
That's fine.
Yeah.
What a great conversation.
Honor meeting you too.
Yes.
Nolan.
An honor.
Oh, Aaron, yeah, absolutely. Are you kidding? And thank you for being a fan. I tell people, like, if you don't like what I do, then I don't get to do these things. I don't get to keep working. So, it's I appreciate it very, very much. Really do.
Right on. All right. Well, good luck with all of your future endeavors.
Yes.
And don't stop entertaining. We love to hear you.
Yeah. Wait, listen, I'm available for parties and bar mitzvahs, whatever it takes, The business has been a little slow, so, call my 1-800 number.
Right on. On that note, thanks again. We'll see you around.
Thank you.
See you, Nolan.
Thank you for listening to the Fourth Curtain Podcast. Visit us at thefourthcurtain.com to find our monthly newsletter and support the show via Patreon. The Fourth Curtain Podcast is a production of Fourth Curtain Media. Lovingly edited by Bryen Hensley of Noise Floor Sound Solutions. Production support by May Lee with community management by Doug Zartman and art production by Paul Russell. Thanks again for listening.